Hi, this is Traci Bild. If you're coming on, I know there's a couple people on. We will be starting the webinar in about 3 minutes. I would suggest that you have your PowerPoint with you. And also we sent 3 handouts that will support today's presentation. So if you would have those available, that would be great. If you don't have them, you can shoot an email to klyon@tracibild.com. And we'll be starting here shortly. Excuse me, that's Karen@tracibild.com. Sorry, Karen. I see that we have more people coming on. If you can bear with us, I have 12:58. We'll be starting the webinar in 2 minutes. If you do have any questions that you would like me to address on today's call, please go ahead and email them to me at tbild@tracibild.com. That's tbild@tracibild.com, spelled like my name. That's right there on the PowerPoint. And I will be checking those. I can check them before we start, and I'll stop and check midway through and at the end of the webinar. And please put in your subject line, question for webinar, or webinar, question for webinar. That way I can access it quicker. Again, if you're just joining us, we'll be starting right at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. And if you have any questions, you can email those to me at tbild@tracibild.com. I know some people are logging on the phone and some people are logging on the webinar. I'm just going to do a quick test. Karen, are you on the conference line? Okay. I'm just making sure you can hear me. Okay. So I have 1 o'clock. What I'd like to do is go ahead and get started because there's always more information than there is time. And I'd like to thank you for being on time and for joining me for the webinar today. We have a lot to cover. So if you're a note taker, get ready. I did provide you with the PowerPoint and a couple supplemental handouts. So if you have those in hand, that's fantastic. They were sent out yesterday and again today. So hopefully you have those in hand. If you don't, just email Karen@tracibild.com. That's Karen@tracibild.com, and she can get you those immediately following the webinar. So many of you watching today have probably seen me speak or present at an industry meeting. You might follow my once a month newsletter with content and training tips and ideas. I thank you for being here. Some of you might have been referred. There is never enough time to get all the training information out I want to give. And I just want to let you know up front, in case you're not taking advantage of this free service, I just recorded this morning about 5 webcasts, not webcasts, they're called podcasts, on the follow-up process. And we send these out and you get them about 3 times a week, and it's called the Daily Sales Vitamin. So if you want to be motivated, educated, and inspired to do things that maybe you've not done before, to step out of your comfort zone or just to keep your edge, please make sure you go to my website at Daily Sales Vitamin, just like a vitamin, or you can go to tracibild.com and it's there on the right. And you can sign in to the left of the screen and we'll email you whenever I do a new podcast. And I try to keep them at 5 minutes or less. Once in a while, I'll go over a minute. And that will help to support you in the training that I'm giving you today and beyond. And there's no charge. It's just a great service and allows me to get you really great information, whether it's on the real estate market, closing, working hot leads, follow up. And I don't want to forget to tell you about that. So I hope that you'll take advantage and sign up for that. So let's get started. Today's topic is the inquiry process. And if I'm looking away from time to time, I'm looking at my PowerPoint. I have a new Mac and I'm not familiar. I usually have my PowerPoint on my screen, and I didn't think about that until we got ready to start. So I have two computers sitting here. So I'm going to teach you today what you need to know to convert 75% of your inquiries, and this is telephone inquiries, into on-site visits. Now, keep in mind that your walk-ins are already there. So what I want you to start doing is tracking your conversion. And what you want to separate out is who is calling and of course who's walking in, because that's traffic. But to measure your conversion ratio, we need to be able to verify that your skill on the phone is such that when people call, 75% of all phone inquiries see the value in coming in for a visit. Think of the impact of that. For every 10 leads that call your building, 7.5 to 8 are coming in for a visit. This is the number one most important skill factor required to drive occupancy. We do not pay near enough attention to this. And we know the more people you get on site, the more sales you will have. And there's a lot more to that. But today we're just talking about the inquiry process. I cannot stress enough the importance of this topic, which is why I'm glad that you're here on this call. You do recognize that. So our objectives today, let's just go through our objectives today. Number one, we want to get your entire team engaged in the inquiry process. This is very, very important. Marketing directors alone cannot be responsible for driving sales anymore. Yes, it's the marketer that has to have the skill to close the sales, get the check, schedule the move-in date, but without a collaborating team, you absolutely are not going to get to 100% occupancy. It's going to take a commitment from your front desk, the activities department, the ED, marketing, the business manager, anybody that is responsible for answering a telephone. And we're going to talk more about that later. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to get the system up and the buy-in in place. Also, you need a system, and I'm going to share with you today how to disarm and engage people in meaningful conversation. When people call in to inquire, they're typically a little bit on edge, they're guarded, they're uncertain, they have no idea what they're getting into, as most people don't actually have an experience with our product until it's needed. So their guard is up, particularly in this economy. They're using that guard as an excuse not to buy. So we're going to talk about that today. How to disarm them. We're going to discuss the importance of not talking price on the phone. It's critical to get people in for a visit, and then how to create the emotional connections so that you can build the value that exceeds the pain of selling a house at 40% below what was once its market value, cashing out stocks to pay an entry fee, doing things that are downright uncomfortable. And then really how to use our popular inquiry connection sheet. So we have a lot to cover today, and I'm just going to go ahead and get right into the PowerPoint presentation. So if you're with me, collaboration. Number one, there has to be a daily focus on mindset and mission. So most of you probably have expressed to your team the importance of not losing leads. You have to do this on a regular basis. So here's the thing. I'm going to teach you a system today to get your team engaged. But if you only address it today and then hope that it works and maybe revisit it when there's a problem, you are going to be losing leads. It's very, very important that you are talking about the inquiry process and mismanaged calls and the importance of your team on a regular basis, meaning at least once a week. And if I were you, Every day in your stand-up meeting, I would just bring it up. If you're an owner operator, what I'd like for you to do today, an executive director, I would like for you later today to mystery shop your building. Just call yourself or get a spouse or a friend to call your building, and I want you to see how many attempts it takes before you actually get to a marketing director. Or it doesn't even have to be a marketing director, it just has to be somebody who can help you and will work to find your needs and build some value and really service you, give you good service. Odds are, if you called your company this time, over the course of the week about 10 times, a good 4 to 6 of those attempts would be mismanaged due to untrained staff. So don't get mad at me for being the deliverer of the news. This is what we find. So we want to unite your community team. And first of all, you have to educate them and explain to them what mismanaged calls are. What is a lost lead? We expect them to know, but in our training that we're doing, we're finding people don't even know what this is, let alone your med tech that's there at night, your security person or maintenance staff. They don't realize, what goes into filling that building. So what is a lost lead? Do they know an average lead costs you $500? A lead that could have moved in but that was lost because it was handled right is costing you $90,000 minimally over a 3-year stay. And most importantly, this is someone calling you in their time of need. This is a 911 call. We weren't there. When you speak this language, you start to educate and train. What I find is your backup team is really excited to be on board and they want to support you, but they're not going to do it without us training them. And the other thing is we have to raise the bar on expectations. If there are 2 mismanaged calls in a week, that's 2 that could have been potential residents. We have to address it, nip it right away, train the person that took the call, and show them what they need to do. We cannot be lackadaisical, laid back on this. We have to be very aggressive in capturing these leads because traffic is down, move-ins are down. We need every lead we can get our hands on. The expectation that you need to deliver is that no leads calling into your building to learn about your services, none will fall through the crack. And I'll tell you, when you raise the bar, people will rise to the level that we expect of them. This is a certainty. So if you're addressing and challenging and letting them know what's expected, you're going to get it. If you're ignoring and hoping it's not so bad, I can guarantee you have problems. Okay? And also we have to express to people that this is a business. And although we're in the business of care, to get to do that care and have that privilege, we have to get people to call or walk in. And then when they call, we have to actually capture that lead and get into the hands of someone who knows how to understand and talk and listen and discover what it is they need in their life. So my mission is and always has been about efficiency. Today, as in every other day that you've been on a training or in a session with me, my goal is help you to learn to work smart, not hard, so you can work less and literally produce more. I call that quality of life. We don't have to kill ourselves to be successful, but we do have to utilize strategy. We have to slow down. We have to have open minds and be willing to learn. Never has learning been more important in our industry than today. You should be doing everything you can to fill your mind with information, education. You need to pass that on to your team and get people fired up. Now let's get into the inquiry system. Okay, so I teach that you need to have systems for each stage of the sales process. And if we don't have systems, what happens is people wing it. Basically meaning they do their best. And I know that people really do try hard. People by nature in our business are very personable, very kind. But unfortunately, things happen. You might be right in the middle of processing a move-in. You get an inquiry call without meaning to. You have a tour coming in. You make the prospect feel rushed. Therefore, you don't ask a lot of questions. You kind of just give them some information, offer to send out a packet, and boom, you're done with the call. We do a lot of mystery shopping around here, and we actually record the calls. We think that's very important because we find if we don't record them, people don't believe they are victim or they're doing these things. So with the evidence in hand, we can provide better training. And one of the things we find very frequently is that the shopper felt like they were interrupting the marketer or the executive director, whoever it was who was taking the call, and that they weren't perceived to feel important. So our number one goal with the inquiry system that I'm going to teach you today is to get more visits, more people on site in the building. Because again, when you're talking to your team or your organization, what they really need to understand is from a skill set, this is the number one important factor to have to grow occupancy. This has to be taken very seriously. So, let's talk about that mismanaged call challenge first. Number one, there's no doubt, unless you are just one of the lucky few, that mismanaged calls are robbing you blind, literally. In a given week, we might do easy, and I don't even run this division, but about 200 mystery shops. And I will tell you, I review the shops that are actual clients of ours that are in our coaching program. And very typically, you'll see that the shopper tried to call that said building maybe 2 times, 3 times before they actually got to someone that could help them. And what's happening is maybe they called at 5:20 and there was nobody there to help them. They might have called at 1:30 and the marketing director's on a tour. What are you going to do? They might have called at 9:15 in the morning and you're in stand-up. So the fact is, there is a valid reason why the marketing directors aren't available. But what you need is a system so that when he or she is unavailable, no problem. You've got a great team that can handle it. And the fact is that marketers are actually only getting the inquiry calls 20% of the time. So that means 80% of the time, 8 out of 10 of your leads are just going off to somebody else. Your revenue is in the hands of somebody who's doing their best to take a name and a number, or perhaps gather a little bit of information, but not someone who is trained thoroughly to get the visit, okay? So we know that 40% of all incoming calls are mismanaged. That's an industry statistic. I personally believe it's closer to 60%. And what's more important than what the industry says or what I say is what's really happening in your building. You need to shop and you need to find out, okay? This is very important. The other thing is, this is during the week. If you look at nights and weekends, it is devastating. And a lot of you just think you don't have traffic on the nights or on the weekends. Odds are you do. It's being lost. When we start shopping on nights and weekends, it personally disturbs me. It's so bad. And even when people have been in our training a long time and we start to go down that road and they know the importance of this, it's still pretty bad. And the reason it's bad is it's not that they don't have the systems. It's that they're not communicating the systems. Communication is everything. Having a vision, leading your organization, expressing what the standard and the expectation is, and then measuring the expectation to make sure that what you're asking for is happening. And if you're not testing your systems and you're hoping they're working, that's a very risky proposition. So my question to you is, how many leads could you have potentially already lost this week? Be honest with yourself. Who's taking calls while you're in this webinar? Now, you're not allowed to get off the webinar because I'm going to teach you enough that'll save you down the road. But what's happening to those leads? What's happening when someone's calling at 8:30 at night because they're a working adult child and they don't have time to do this during the day? Or the independent living prospect who finally gets the courage to call you at 7:30. Who's handling those leads? I want this to soak into your mind and bother you so that you'll do something about it. Now, we know the average community loses $60,000 a year to mismanaged calls. You have the power to recapture this. I cannot tell you enough. You can fix this with the right focus. Now, the average in what I'm going to show you, one of the handouts, let me just address this right now. I was going to address it a little bit later on, but I sent you a tool called the Short Inquiry Connection Sheet, okay? That's this tool here. You can see how short it is. Most of you have some kind of a tool, a paper, a little, thicker note cardstock that you use when someone calls or walks in. We need to replace those. I see them everywhere I go. They are not effective. Most likely they're not being utilized. Again, you may be unusual and that you really have this down. Unfortunately, we find communities this is a break in their system. So I have something I sent you called the Short Inquiry Connection Sheet. This is a very simple tool. We recommend that you color code these. At the bottom it says color code, and you want to color code it purple, or you can do your own color so that it can be easily picked up. A marketer can see it's in the tray to grab it. We do not want it white. And when the caller calls in, what you're going to train your backup staff to do is very simply fill out this form. It's very basic. But what we realize are there language barriers. Not everyone can read as thoroughly, so we made it very simple, very short, so no matter what kind of staff person you have on board, they can handle this. And all they're going to do is say, Shelly is not available at this time, but I'd love to help you if I can. Do you mind if I ask you just a couple quick questions to better assist you? Now, I already made that my own. It's not a script, it's a system. So it doesn't say love, but I said that. You'll tweak it to yourself. And just, can I get your name? Who's this concerning? Is there a best time to reach you for Shelly? What number would you prefer she call? And then thanks for your time and interest. I'll refer this to her and she'll be in touch with you today. Now, you may have to go in and save this in your Word docs and state specifically, should return your call within the hour. A lot of marketing directors are willing to be called on their cells, and in this market, that's probably not a bad idea to return all calls within an hour. And you can also rotate the EDs on Monday, the marketer Tuesday, activities director Wednesday, and that way you have coverage every night of the week because people are calling at night. And then there's a place, if they don't want to give their number, we want to offer to get them a packet of information, and we have an address and such there. So if we just give them this very simple tool, and then communicate what the expectation is, and then where to put this when they're done. We recommend a tray right by their workspace, and then every day the marketer will look in the tray for purple forms. Here's the fact. This is so basic and simple, you guys. The things I teach are very basic, yet they yield a lot of revenue. This is about the most basic thing I'm going to share with you. Marketers, if you go to get in your trays and you see the purple sheets there, you know the system's working. If there are not purple sheets, the system is broken. Do not believe your night staff or even your day staff, if you've been out doing outreach, if they tell you that there's been no calls. Odds are there have been calls, but they are not working the system, therefore leads are being lost. And EDs, you should be litmus testing this and looking up there and saying, so where are the purple sheets? How many purple sheets did you get today or yesterday? And then bringing this up in your meeting with your marketers. This is very important. So I wanted to make sure you knew what that form is because it's so simple, sometimes I forget it. Now, the average inquiry to visit rates for a CCRC is 25%. For an independent living community, it's 35%, and for an assisted living community, it's 45%. This is the average. You are on this webinar today. You are improving yourself. I imagine that you are above average. And if you're not, it's because you simply didn't know to even track this metric. I find most people in the industry are not aware of the importance of this metric, and they're not even tracking it. Yet this is the lifeblood of your revenue. So every week, I would be looking at your phone inquiry to tour conversion ratio. At minimum, once a month. We look at every client every month, and we look for growth. We try to get them to do it every week. Unfortunately, not everybody wants to do that, which again demonstrates they really aren't getting how important this is. So now again, my goal is to get you to 75%, all of you. CCRC, AL, IL, because my belief is that if they're calling you, they are a hot lead. People would not be calling in today's market if there was not something going on. They'd be waiting. Nobody wants to spend money right now. And odds are the people that are calling you should have probably called you a year ago. This is very important to understand because some of you are still trying to prejudge or pre-qualify people over the phone. Assume they are ready. Let them prove you otherwise. And I'm going to give you a system that will ensure that you don't get in that rut of prejudging, rushing people, asking a bunch of medical questions that scare them off, listing services, verbal vomiting as we call it. And you've heard it if you've done any kind of shops yourself on your competitors. So number one, let's talk about when that phone call comes in. We need to make sure that as of today, everyone understands what a mismanaged call is, that if they get that call, they know where these forms are, and they know where to put them upon completion, and that the marketing director picks them up and follows up in a timely manner. And then you want to address this system daily for the next 30 days. I would bring every purple sheet to your morning meeting. Great, yay, we got 3 sheets yesterday. Great job. Say their names, lots of recognition so they continue. Maybe even throw out a few, a Walmart $10 gift card, a McDonald's $5 card. It makes all the difference in the world. Now, the average inquiry to visit rates, which we've talked about, we want to get to is 75%. So let me show you how to get to that. Now, just to give you confidence, we average out our students across the country, and on average, our 200 plus coaching students are at 74%. Okay, and this is a combination of CCRC, IL, AL, skilled, memory care. We put them all in a big pile because it's just quicker and it allows us to actually get it done. And I'm telling you, you can do it too. So to do that, you need a toolbox. And in that toolbox, you're going to have what's called connection sheets. So again, every system that has to do with an inquiry process is in the form of a connection sheet, because in order to get people to come visit you, they need to connect with you. So you'll have your adult child connection sheet that I sent you, and this is for the power of attorney people you're talking to, the adult children, the friend that's looking for a friend. This is what you would use. Then we also have the prospective resident sheet, and that's going to be used more with independent living CCRCs. However, we're finding that with those two products that the adult child is actually calling in about half the time. So if you're doing one of those two services, you're probably using both of these forms. So for that reason, you're also going to want a color code. So the green, we color code our adult child in green. I don't have the prospective resident, I think it's blue or something. But that way you can color copy about 50 copies of each of these. You're going to put them in a file holder right where you can grab them at your desk so they're easily accessible. And then when the call comes in, boom, you have your tool. You're not winging it, and you are going to have what you need to book this person to a visit. Not 100%, but 75%. Now, EDs, marketing directors, activity directors, anyone that is an active, what we call backup team player, will use this actual connection sheet. The only people using the night and weekend would be a receptionist, because they don't have time to use what I'm going to teach you. Perhaps a nurse who's taking care of, residents at night, maintenance person. However, depending on the caliber of your night staff, they may even be able to use this full sheet. So this is going to replace your current paperwork for the inquiry process. You don't want to use multiple forms. So I wanted to point that out. So let me just take you through this. Some of you have been at my conferences, have maybe done coaching with me in the past. I know a lot of you like to just keep coming back because the information layers. It's constantly evolving because we learn from you every day. But if you look at your inquiry connection sheet, what's really important about this is that you have a system. Without a system, unintentionally, you're going to rush the person through the call because you have so many things going on in a day. You're going to ask medical-oriented questions if you're AL, memory care, skilled, and skip the emotional questions. If you're a CCRC or an IL, many of those people we find fall into the trap of trying to pre-qualify, see if the person owns a house, if they've sold their house, if they can afford it. None of these things are going to be nearly as effective as having a proven system that focuses you first and foremost on finding the needs of the caller, giving them 5-star service, building value, and then easing into some of those other topics, okay? So the first thing you want to do is get control of the call, because when people call in, they're a little bit guarded, they're not sure what to ask, they've not had an experience more than likely, maybe they're referred to you, they've driven by for years, but something's going on that's made them call you. This is one of the most important things I can teach you today, is that if people are calling, there is a reason. They're not just looking. So as easy as it is for us to say, oh, they were just looking and that's why they didn't come in, or, well, people can't sell their homes. That is not the case. What we have to understand, is that, forgive me, I just noticed my computer was unplugged. That's not good. what we have to understand is that people, forgive me, bear with me here. I'm glad I caught this. Again, new Mac, new plug-in system, is that people are going to have their guard up and they're going to make it seem like they don't want to do this today. They do. That's why they're calling you. It's your job as a sales professional to get them excited to buy what you have and validate that they did the right thing by calling you. The good news for you is if they're calling you and 3 or 4 other people, odds are the 3 or 4 other people are just kind of telling them all about them and how great their community is. So what you want to do is up here at the very top, it says, I would be more than happy to get you the information that you are looking for. I assume you all have your sheets, but just in case. So someone may call and say, hi, I just want to get some information on your community. Can you give me a little bit of info and price? Absolutely, I'm more than happy to do that. Do you mind if I just ask you a couple quick questions so I know what specific information to get you and what pricing to give you? Now, anybody in their right mind is going to say, oh, sure, because that makes sense. And I'll tell you firsthand, 99% of these people are going to say yes. So whether they ask for a packet, pricing, you're going to, first and foremost, get permission to ask questions. Now, you want to acknowledge that you heard what they want. So, of course, I'm happy to get you that pricing. But do you mind if I ask you a few quick questions so I know what to put in the packet? They will say yes. And now what's happened is you're in control. Before, they were in control. However, they think they're in control because they gave you permission. So it's a great scenario here. And then all you're going to do is say, well, can I get your name? And they'll tell you, make sure it's spelled correctly. And then just in case we get disconnected, could I get your phone number? So by saying just in case we get disconnected, what we find is people usually, boom, they give you their number. So now you have it right up front. And then you're just going to say, first, then you're going to start going through these questions. The questions are designed to be open-ended, not yes or no. We have found, and another company called Service Track has also found, that people on average will ask 2 questions and start selling. You really need to be asking 7, 8, 9, 10 or more questions minimally before this market crash, but particularly today because we have more value to build. And our goal is to focus them in on their needs and the things that they really haven't come to terms with or don't even know about themselves yet, because that's the true job of a sales professional, to help people to understand what it is they need and then to make a recommendation. And then we're going to ask these questions. They start out kind of light and airy, then they get kind of emotional. Don't be afraid of the emotion. And then they ease back off and they get a little lighter as we go into our close. Our goal is to listen and learn. It's not about us, it's about them. They don't care about us. What they want to know is, how can you help me? And if you can help me, I may move there. If you can't, I'm on to the next. And really, guys, we have one chance to make an amazing first impression. Because if you do not captivate them on this call, you will probably never hear from them again. If you're an owner operator, I cannot stress enough as a leader of your organization how important this is, that you are paying close attention to what is happening when people call your properties, because really you're spending thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to get your phone to ring so that people will come in and look at your properties. Yet what's happening is when they call, many of the times the calls are being lost, and then once they get on the phone with the caller, they're just being rushed right off, sent a packet, and half the time the contact information isn't even being collected. And I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm giving you the facts. Okay, so all you're going to do is, so I'm just going to, because I don't have one of you here to role play with me, I'm just going to kind of walk you through this. So ring, ring, and then follow along with your connection sheet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the questions, and actually, let me take you through a slide, the next slide, where it says connection sheets at the top, slide number 16. Think of this connection sheet as a tree. And if you're joining me on future webinars, a lot of today's information, this is the groundwork for the future webinars we're going to be doing. This is the core of this connection sheet, is the trunk of the tree. And then the questions are here. We're going to branch off regularly when going through these questions. And then when we're going through the questions and we're learning the answers to people's problems and challenges, we're going to add what I call the leaves, the color of the community. The leaves are where you're going to needs match and talk about you and your services to a small degree. And then the goal is by the end of the inquiry call to have their roots planted so they're ready to come, and actually they're excited. They feel like there's hope. Now, to do this, it's going to sound very easy. It takes skill. It takes practice. This is not this is a piece of paper. Wow, this is so basic. Let me do this. You'll find when you start to use this, there's a lot of skill in here and there's a lot of layers. It's going to require talking, listening, being disciplined, sticking to the system, not wanting to jump in and talk all about you, not you personally, but your community, and not wanting to pre-qualify. For the CCRCs and the ILs, I just have to be very honest with you here. This is an area that we consistently find is a challenge. For a CCRC, the relationship is everything. It's a long sales cycle. And we find that many marketers, they jump to pre-qualify way too quick. It's more important than ever for you particularly to just let them talk and learn and discover about them. And for some reason, this is very, very hard to teach. So I'm just reaching out and being very, very honest with you. However, I believe it's important, critically important, that, if you think about memory care, in memory care, people are more emotional than ever. The last thing we want to do is start talking to them about their medical care needs. They need someone to talk to about their emotional needs. This connection sheet is driven to create an emotional connection between you and the caller, because it's been proven time and time again, and I'll show you studies today, that it is the emotion that drives the sale. Yet we're not connecting on the phone. We're waiting and connecting on site when and if we get them in for a tour. The problem is many of you have maybe a 30-35% inquiry to tour conversion, so you're losing 70+% of your leads. You're never getting them in to make that emotional connection. So you must learn to do this over the phone. This is critical. So all I'm going to do is, if I get an inquiry call and they say, yes, I just want to get some information. Can you give me some pricing on your property? Absolutely. I'm more than happy to do that. Do you mind if I just ask you a few quick questions so I know best how to help you today? Now, when you do that, the prospect's guard goes down because it's not a sales pitch. It's just a brief question, okay? It just for some reason disarms them. They'll say yes, and then you'll say, great, well, can I just start with your name? Sure, my name's Brian, okay? And your last name, Brian Smith. That's an easy one, okay? And Brian, just in case we get disconnected, can I get your phone number? And then you'll get the phone number. Now, can I ask, what was it that made you decide to call in today? So you'll see, you can word the questions in a way that feels good for you. This is not a script, it's a system. So you're basically going to find out the situation. And he may say, well, I know that my mom's been having some trouble. She's not taking her medications. I don't know what she's doing. She just either takes too many or not enough. She ended up in the hospital. And you know what? I work, 2 jobs. I'm very worried about her. And my father is just in denial. So I am calling to learn about what my doctor said I needed to do, which is look at assisted living. Okay, great. So now the next question is, what's a family member's name? But there's a lot more we need to learn here. So that's when you'll branch. You can branch off as much as you want and use your expertise, your skill, and your experience to help you to really drill down. So I might say, okay, so can I just ask, how long have you noticed this has been happening? And he might say, I gotta admit, it's probably been going on for about 6 months or more. Okay, well, at least you're calling today. Can I ask, how many medications is she taking? Well, she takes 5, okay. And I don't expect you to know the medications, but can you tell me a little bit about what's going on with her health that, is leading her to take these medications? So then I may learn that, she has migraine headaches, that she's had a stroke, she has high blood pressure, We may know that she gets blood clots, different things. So here is where you want to branch off. And you want to ask as many questions as you need to until you have clarity around the situation. And once you feel like you have clarity, don't keep asking questions because you'll drive them nuts, okay? In regards to that, just get what you need to understand the picture of what's driving their decision to call. Now, the CCRC or independent living, although many of you think it's not need driven, it is. Because we coach so many buildings, it really gives our company a bird's eye view into what's happening. We know that the average person coming in is in their early to mid 80s. They do have medical situations. They are independent, they can care for themselves, but if you drill down throughout the course of this conversation, what you're going to find is there's some type of medical scare, or there's an event or something that's going on with their circle of friends that is driving that call to you. They're not going to tell you right up front. They're going to scream their independence, but only as you dig around will you begin to understand what is driving the call. And it's not, I just decided to start looking. So you're going to find out what made them to call. And now with the prospective resident connection sheet, it starts off, you're going to do less medical, and it's like, what's going on that made you decide to call us today? Okay, and then after you get your information, so can I ask, what is your mother's name? It's May, okay. And do you mind if I ask how old she is? Yes, she's 83, okay. And now you said that she's living with your father. Do they live here, like close to us, next to you? Where do they live? So just basic factual questions here is what we're looking for. And now, does your mom know that you're looking? Now we're starting to get into some emotional pieces of the connection sheet now. And they usually will say, well, not really. How do you think she would feel if she knew that you were considering this as an option? And then you learn, and if they say something like, well, she's not going to be happy, branch off. Well, when you say she's not going to be happy, what makes you say that? Well, one of her friends went into a nursing home and it was a nightmare. And then, of course, that's where you want to needs match, add the leaves, and say, well, I just want to really clarify the difference between a nursing home and an assisted living or an independent living community. And then you can explain how very different it is. And of course, you want to relate back, say, for example, you're talking about medications. And you'll talk about how your nurse dispenses the medications and how it's, done that, and how it's very different, and they can have free roam in the community. They can leave, use their transportation. So you'll address that with what we call the leaves. Now, can I ask, what for you is most important to you about a community that you might choose for your mother? I can sense this is going to be a very important thing to you. What's going to matter most here? Now, this question is where it starts to get emotional, and we find that a lot of marketers will avoid this question. It just kind of has demonstrated to us that people are scared of the emotion over the phone. Trust me, the more you ask it, the more comfortable you'll get, and the more second nature it'll become. And they may say, well, what's important to us is that mom starts getting her medications on time, that we don't have to worry anymore about if she's taking them or not. She's spilled them before and we thought she took them. I mean, I need to know that that is in order. Okay, and is there anything else that's important to you? So let's say she's taking her medications. What else is important to you? Well, I want them to be happy. I just want them to feel like they're at home. Well, can I ask, since you're mom and dad, what makes them happy when it comes to their home? Oh, well, they like to watch a lot of TV. My mom actually goes for a walk every night at 6 o'clock sharp. She has for 25 years. Okay. Well, just so you know, we have many walking clubs here. I don't know if they go at 6, but they go a couple times during the day. And I'm sure we could get a few people that would walk with her at night if she wanted companionship. And of course, they'll have their own TVs in their apartment, or there's different zones in our community where they can go and engage, and your dad can watch a football game with the other guys and your mom can watch what she wants. So of course, that will be available to them. So that's where I'm, again, relating, but it's specific to what they're saying. What tends to happen is the marketing team or the ED, whoever's taking the call, will not, I know it sounds very strange, but they're not tailoring the information they're sharing to the person they're talking to. They're just listing what they have. all their activities, their meal times, their events. We have to tailor what we're saying. We have to speak their language. So then after I ask what's most important, you're going to go into, and can I ask for you, as we talk, what really is your greatest concern at this time? And you need to pause here. And that question needs to be asked with great empathy, because people will literally start crying here. And how you ask it is as important as the question. And it really demonstrates you care. And this is where you're going to hear things like, I just feel like I'm scared my mom's going to overdose and not be here in a year. You hear the real driving need. So give them the time to answer. Don't put words in their mouth. So we're taking them to a place that's getting them to get emotional, to open up to you, to really share what's in their heart and mind and what's going on, what their concerns are. And then we're going to lighten it back up. Well, if we could do anything else to help improve your mom's quality of life. So let's say she's getting her medications, you and your father have peace of mind. She's starting to, walk with a club here by herself. She's walking, she's doing the things she likes to do. She's watching her TV shows she loves. Is there anything else you'd like to see for your mother to improve her overall quality of life, from maybe, the kind of food she's eating, to more socializing things she used to do? Does anything come to mind? And just pause, because you're giving them a chance to think. So they might say, well, I have to say, she used to really socialize a lot. And now that you say that, she's walking alone. My dad doesn't like to go out of the house. Neither of them likes to drive. So they're really at home a lot more. And I guess I didn't really place that until we had this conversation. But I mean, they were very active people. And that leads me, so you could branch off more and go to the next question. So can I ask, what kind of things does your mom and dad like to do for fun, or did they do before they started becoming more isolated? And again, listen. If they say they love to dance, ask what kind of dancing. The details are key here. Well, when you say dance, what kind of dancing? Are they polka dancers? Are they, ballroom dancers? What kind of dancing did they enjoy? Have fun with the conversation, but really learn what makes the individuals you're talking to unique. And then what else do they do besides dancing? Well, my mom's an avid reader. Okay. Is there any certain kind of book that she likes? Mysteries for sure. She's a huge mystery fan, and she's always got a book in her hand. I don't know what to say. Okay. So you can branch. For time's sake, I got to keep moving. Is there anyone else that's going to be involved in this decision besides your dad and your mother and you? Yes, I have an older sister. Okay. And what's her name? It's Michelle. Okay. Now she here locally. So I'm branching off. And then what kind of time frame are you considering? And how did you hear about it? It's her final question. So the bottom line is, you can see there's a lot of questions. And if there are 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 10 questions on this sheet. Think about this. And you branch off about every third question. You can literally be learning so much about your prospect and asking about 20 or more questions. Now in your mind, you're probably wondering, and how long is this going to take? And that's the wrong thing to be wondering. Because no matter how long it takes, if someone's calling you to buy what you have, and it requires them completely changing their life, selling their home, and trusting you at this level, if it took 30 minutes, we should be more than happy to give it to them. However, on average, it takes about 8 minutes, because you're not just chit-chatting. You're focused on the core needs of why this person called, and you're not getting off track. You're staying focused on the issue at hand, independent, assisted, whatever kind of care it is they're looking for. And the goal is, by the end of the connection sheet, to have their roots planted and them excited to come in for a visit. Now, what we teach people at our seminars is, when you're going through this connection sheet, you actually want to, when it's new, first read it before you use it. But on your next inquiry today, I want you to, as you go through the questions, cover up the next question. See, I have a piece of paper here. Cover up the question except for the one you're in, and then pull it down. This will help you stay focused on the question at hand and listening to the answer. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to be looking and reading while they're talking, and you're going to miss the whole point of the connection sheet. If you do this today and you do it on every inquiry call between today and tomorrow, you are going to be blown away by the increased information that you thought you were getting, but you are nowhere near tapping into. This is a proven system. Now, the other important part about this is you want to drill down deep. Slide number 17. You want to really drill down. So that's why you have little cheat sheets, phrases all through the connection sheet. You'll see it says needs match, drill down, because we know you're in a pressured environment. And my goal is to remind you of the things you need to do to get 75% of those people in the door. So if you say, what does mom like to do for fun? And they say, oh, she just watches TV. Well, that's something. What kind of shows does she like? Oh, game shows for sure. Does she have a favorite? Jeopardy. So now we know she likes Jeopardy. Who else do we have in our community that likes Jeopardy? Is there a Jeopardy trivia book I can get her and give as a gift when she comes in? Is there a trivia quiz I can send her today that's fun prior to the visit to break the ice and start the relationship? Can I start my meeting with a trivia question from Jeopardy? Do you see? You want to have fun with this. People love people. They want to buy from people they like. And the more you know about them, the more likely you are going to be able to connect and build value and get them excited about what you're offering. Now, on slide 18, there was a study done by Promatura, who's an awesome company, does tons of research, and they found that the number one deciding factor to closing sales is the emotional connection. That's what, before I even got this study, we've been teaching this for 20 years, 10 specifically in senior housing. That entire connection sheet is built around emotional connections. And that's why, comfortable or not, you've got to use it. I realize changing habits is not easy, but you can do this. And what you have to remember is the more you use it, the easier it will get and the better you'll get at tweaking it and making it your own. I also want to re-clarify, if you're an ED or a director of sales, you're working with your team, when they first do this, they're going to feel like it's a script because it's uncomfortable. It's not like what they're used to. We're used to just kind of saying whatever we want to say. Well, you want to make sure that you encourage them and remind them that this is a system. It's like a recipe. The questions are your recipe. And then they can fill in with their expertise, their favorite sayings, so add their favorite questions and make it a system of their own. The second most important thing is personalization. You have to personalize your conversation by relating back only the things that they need to know that are relative to why they're calling. We don't need to know you have a brand new swimming pool if that's not something that's important to them. We don't need to tell them about the $10 million fitness center and trail that was built around your property if they're not talking to you about the importance of fitness and mom or dad working out or them working out. We want to stick tight to the things that they are discussing that are important to them, because it's not about us, it's about them. Also remember that buyers on slide number 19 go by feelings, not logic. Feelings are going to override the logic of, I don't want to sell my home right now for a depressed market rate. I want to wait. Well, number one, why are they calling you then? Okay, honestly. People are not, they may say they're looking a year out, they're calling, they need what you have now. And know that it's in your head, they don't. You have to understand this. And we know this because we're helping communities everywhere close sales. And this is a core principle we teach as we work the hot leads with them. Buyers go by feelings, not logic. Remember that. If they are not buying because they're saying they can't sell their house, go back to what is it you know about them. You should have a minimum of 7 core needs on the table that you can work with to advance this sale forward. Now, in your close, once you get through the connection sheet, you'll notice at the bottom, we have what's called the checkmate close, okay? I try to put everything I can fit on this little piece of paper to help you be as successful as possible. I'm a firm believer, we don't want to just tell people what to do. I want to show you how to do it. So you can walk off this call today, and by this time, the end of December, so January 2nd, your conversion is up a good 20%. You could literally be, by the end of next week, with the right focus, mindset, and commitment to this information, you could be at a 75% inquiry to tour conversion, which is pretty powerful and an accomplishment. At the bottom, it says checkmate close, okay? And I would not get the address until you're done closing. Only at that time would I ask. So if I went through my connection sheet, then you want to transition by recapping. Okay, we always want to repeat back what we heard for clarity of conversation, and more importantly, we are building value regarding the visit. If you're not recapping, what happens is people don't even know what they've told you because they're under pressure, they're a little bit stressed, they're nervous, they can't remember. They don't even know what they've said. But as you recap it, it's going to blow their mind that you listened and that you understand them so well. Truly, this is where the close is going to happen. So you can transition after that last question of what kind of time frame you're considering, and don't take that as a grain of salt, use it as a guide. You're going to transition by saying, so based on what you told me, it sounds like, and then you're going to recap. Now, as you're going through your connection sheet, I always advise people to circle the hot buttons because sometimes we write so much, we get messy, we can't even read our own writing. So circle the hot buttons or have a highlighter, highlight them real quick as you get them. Then that combined with your listening skills, which will improve every day you do this. It's going to be one of the greatest byproducts of this training session today is improved listening skills, which will help in every area of your life. Is going to be you recapping. And then after you recap, you're going to go right into what I call an optional close, and you want to get them in tomorrow or today. A choice of two. We don't ever want to ask if they want to come in. We know they need to come in. So we're not asking if, we're asking when. This is very important to getting your conversion to the 75%. Without this, you're going to tap out at 60%. So you're going to say, what might work best for you to come in for a visit? Would tomorrow or even this afternoon work better for you? So, and then you're pausing tomorrow or this afternoon. Now, recapping, I'm just going to give you a demonstration. I might say, so based on what you told me, it sounds like, Brian, what's most important to you is that you immediately help your mother get her medications under control. She's very healthy. She's independent. She's walking every day. Her and your father are a bit more isolated, kind of trapped as far as having to watch TV, not get out and do the things they like to do. But the reason you mainly called me today is you're concerned about the repercussions of your mom mismanaging her medications. Is that correct? And he'll go, yes. He'll say, yes, yes. But it's also, in talking further with you, equally important that your mom and dad start to kind of, do the things they always did when they were driving more. You mentioned going to church. You mentioned going out to the movies, having dinner with friends. Your dad was a golfer. We'd like to see him as well doing these things because it's going to be better for his longevity. It's going to be healthier, happier. And I know you and I discussed how important it was that they be happy. Brian, what I would really recommend at this point, the next step would be for you to come in for an actual visit. And you can come with or without your mom and dad, but there is really no better way for you to understand assisted living or independent, whichever one you're talking to them about, other than walking our halls, meeting our residents, seeing the kind of active people that are like your mom and dad that live here. What might work better for you tomorrow or even this afternoon? Okay? And then pause. So we're building value. We're being very clear what needs to happen next. Your confidence must come through. We cannot be wobbly, weak. We must know and believe this is the right thing for them. And what's really cool about this is the better you get at your connection sheet and the more needs you find, the easier it is to have confidence and passion because you really know this is the right thing for them. Common mistakes that people make, slide number 21, is again, by using this system, you're not going to be pre-qualifying. You will find you are going to discuss price over the phone at least half of the time as what you're doing now. And instead, you're going to get them in for a visit and discuss it there. Now, if they ask you, we redirect them like you saw me do earlier. But if they ask again in the middle of the conversation, then you're going to go back to it and you're going to give them a range, okay? We're not going to avoid it. We are not going to prejudge and start asking people if they own a home and, basically where they live. Never do that on an inquiry call. Unless you have a red flag. If you get a red flag that makes you think it's Medicaid, Medicare, something like that, then go there and only then. We're not going to rush them. We're going to realize that if we have patience and we follow our system, we will close 75%. We are not going to push packets of information because we realize it's a packet. It can't form a relationship. Save the money, get them in for a visit. If they say, can you just send me a packet after you get through this whole thing? Say, well, I could. But as I mentioned, I can't express the importance of actually coming here, because bottom line is whoever has the best packet is probably the one that's going to get you in for a visit. And that doesn't always mean they give the best service. You really need to go in and visit, and I'd love to start here with you. You want to listen, not talk. And if you can avoid these mistakes, you're going to have bigger results. The other thing is the real estate market and everything. You guys, houses are selling. Price is king. That's going to come up on the next webinar on the on-site visit. We're going to be talking about the real estate market, strategies to get places to sell. I don't have time for that today. But whenever anybody objects, what I want you to do is say, I understand. So if you get through the whole connection sheet and they still say, that sounds great, but I'm not really ready to come in for a packet. I just kind of did a role play with you on what to say, but the phrase you want to use when people object is I understand. And then say, can I ask you a quick question since we're on the phone still, or while I have you on the phone? And then ask an open-ended question. Okay, something like, okay, our whole conversation today of everything we've talked about, maybe I'm missing it. What is bottom line most important to you about the places that you'll take the time to go visit? What is it you're looking for? Because clearly, if they're not saying yes to a visit, they're not seeing the value. And that's what you have to get to. And it's worth fighting for, guys, because this may be the only chance you ever have to talk to them. So don't tell them what to do. Don't overcome their objections. Ask more questions. Try to avoid discussing that price till on site, because it's very intimidating and people don't understand it. And never get into pet fees and community fees and all of that if you do not have to. Save it for the visit. Offer to go to their home, meet them at a Panera Bread, a Starbucks. Get out of your office if you have to, where you can get in front of them. I put some sample questions on slide number 23 for when people object. If you're trying to get them in, you might, so if they say, I know that all sounds great, I'm just doing my homework, I'll give you a call back next week. Well, I definitely understand that you want to do your homework. Since I have you on the phone, could I just ask you a quick question? And then there's a couple here. You could say, can I ask, what exactly are you looking for in a community that will get you excited? Because I don't sense you're excited, and I really want to help you here. So you got to be real when you're asking these questions. You might say, what in particular, Brian, is keeping you from coming in for a visit and really just seeing our community firsthand? What's holding you back? And pause. So you want an open-ended question that will help you to salvage the call and get it. And then once they tell you, then you want to go for a close again. So let me just check and see if any questions are coming in. Let's see here. If you have any questions, you can email them to tbild@tracibild.com. It says, in the beginning of the webinar, you mentioned a purple sheet for reception front desk. We don't have this. We received pink, green, and yellow. Okay, we have revised some of these forms. So if yours says front desk connection sheet or short inquiry connection sheets, then that's what you want. On our members lounge and our website, so if you go to tracibild.com, look to the right on the bottom, there's something called the members lounge. We're going to begin charging for this next year, so get on there and get everything you can off. It's loaded, as you'll see, with training information. It's free right now. You can download a variety of different sheets for the front desk and your night staff. We have a couple different ones because we realize you have different talent on your staff, and we want you to pick the one that's best for your staff. You may have someone that could do a whole inquiry connection sheet at night because it's slow, there's maintenance or security, and I would advise you, if you get them to use the whole sheet, you incentivize them that if they complete the whole sheet, they get something, and it's worth giving them $20, trust me. Or if you get the move-in or a tour book, they get an incentive. You do want to incentivize your people because it pays. So your color code may be different. So thank you, Michelle, for bringing that up. I don't see any other questions. I will check here. We have just now 2 o'clock. So let me just wrap up. Here's what we want to do. We want to raise the bar. We want to raise the standard and the expectation of ourselves, our communities, and our organization as a whole. That is my ultimate mission. I am on a mission, guys. We have proven we can do better. And it all starts with each and every one of us. And education is power. We can raise occupancy in this industry. We can change the way things are done, which in turn will change public perception, what people say about us, and the experiences they have with us are what create that perception. We want to, in regards to today's webinar, capture the leads you've worked so hard to generate through your outreach, through your marketing dollars spent. You want to address this in your weekly meetings. In your weekly meetings, I would be showing completed sheets by your front desk and night staff, congratulating people for being a team player. And I would pull up as an ED or an owner, I'd require that once a week you looked at the previous week's inquiry to tour conversion ratio. I would accept nothing less. That is what you need to be looking at. Worst case, once a month. But if you want to be at the top of your game, weekly. You want to look to grow to 75%. This won't happen overnight, but it will happen. So I want to encourage you, wherever you are today, you want to look for growth. It may be 2% a month. You may go up 5%, 10%, 15%. You may jump 40% in 1 month on inquiry to tour conversion. What we look for is growth. It's a game of inches. People learn at different rates, so don't put so much pressure they can't perform. And then you want to mystery shop. I'll give you our discounted mystery shop rate if you're not shopping with us. We do our recorded telephone mystery shops for $75. We'll do them for $60 because you're on this webinar, however many you need. I really believe they're critically important as a key component of your success, and you need to do them consistently. Whatever your budget will allow for. If it's once a quarter, at least it's once a quarter. Once a month is better. And I would think that's about all you need, unless you are having problems, and then you're going to do a little bit more aggressive and tear off. You can have a friend do these for you, but don't settle for anything less. Administrators, you are the anchor. You have to drive this machine. You have to speak the language I'm talking about today. Keep that bar high because people look to you. Marketers, you want to work hand in hand with your ED to make sure you are collaborating to pull this off and capture these leads. And the shop should show you if you're missing calls. And you want to do maybe a day, an evening, and a weekend shop for a couple weeks to make sure that you're not missing anything until you know it's working. Our next webinar is January 14th at 1 o'clock, and it's on the visit experience. I'm going to give you hands-on system to transform tours into personal experiences. It will drive visits and move-ins. I highly encourage you to get on that webinar. Most of you are already registered. And then on the final slide, 27, I don't need to go through all this. There's the main thing on here is the members lounge and the daily sales vitamin. We're not really tweeting a lot. In our Facebook, we're going to get a little more aggressive on in the next year. We've got a game plan for that. But I really advise you to start watching my daily sales vitamin. It's going to support you and uplift you because some of you are off in your own offices and you're trying to manage this process yourself and stay motivated. Let me help you. I love doing it. And I love to inspire and encourage people. So you just go to dailysalesvitamin.com, and on the left side, you put in your email to sign up. And what will happen is whenever there's a webinar, a podcast that's been recorded, you'll get an email with the topic. You can click on it and watch it, or you can delete it. That simple. So I hope that you will follow me on that. And then email me topics you'd like for me to cover in my 5-minute podcast. I'm happy. I need ideas. And I'm happy to address what you need. Let me check before we go to make sure there's no last minute questions. And what I just want to remind you, and I'm looking right at you and I'm saying this, your building absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, should be full. If it's not full, there is a reason. What we have to do is get to the bottom line reason. If it's traffic, I already did a webinar. You can buy it right on my website. It's very reasonable, and it's on outreach. I would advise you to listen to that webinar. I didn't do it on this series because we already covered that, I think, in November, but it's on the main page of my website. You can click and get past webinars, and that's a critical component to driving your traffic. Now we have to convert the traffic that you have into on-site visits so that next month we can talk about the on-site visit, and from there we'll do follow-up. So I hope you'll join me on this journey. Please do let your business associates know about these webinars. I'm trying to reach out and get to as many people as I can, and this saves me a lot of travel time. So I thank you for your time today. So glad that you joined me. Feel free to email me questions after today's webinar, and I appreciate you believing in me enough to come on today, and look forward to being a part of your continuing education to fill your building to capacity. Thank you, and I will talk to you later. Have a great Friday and Thursday. Bye.